Right now on the Mafia News Podcast, I'm about to walk you through the life of Sammy the Bull Gravano, the muscle and hitman of the Mafia, the rise and fall. Let's go. How Sammy the Bull Gravano went from Mafia killer to FBI informant. Before he cooperated with the FBI and put John Gotti behind bars, Gambino, underboss, Sammy the Bull Gravano was one of the most feared killers in Mafia history. Sammy the Bull violated the cardinal rule that all who go into a life of crime must follow: do not talk to authorities. The Mafia called this code of silence a mantra, and the penalty for breaking it was death. For decades, the Mafia has ruthlessly enforced this code, one that long allowed them to grow prosperously and avoid large-scale prosecution. And when a man-made decides to turn against the Mafia and cooperate with the cops, he knows his days are numbered. But Brooklyn mobster and Gambino family underboss Salvatore Sammy the Bull Gravano not only crossed one of the most powerful mob bosses in the country by breaking the code of silence in 1992, he then lived to tell the tale. This is the astonishing story of Sammy Gravano, feared killer turned FBI informant. The early life of Sammy the Bull before he became a Mafia murderer. Born in Brooklyn in 1945, Sammy the Bull Gravano grew up in the Bensonhurst, a Brooklyn neighborhood with a predominantly Italian-American population. Even though he was Christian, Salvatore, one of his relatives once remarked he closely resembled his Uncle Sammy, and that's how he would be known from then on. The young Sammy Gravano fell into crime at an early age, beginning with some minor shoplifting. When he was 7, he started stealing 2 cupcakes a day at a neighborhood store on his way to school. When he eventually got caught by an employee, he received a stern warning that nevertheless didn't deter him from graduating to much more serious crimes. One widely told story says that Gravano first acquired the attention of the Mafia at age 10, when local gangsters watched him get into a fight with several older bullies who had stolen his bike. One of the gangsters remarked that Gravano had boldly challenged multiple larger kids and had fought like a little bull, and the nickname that he would keep for the rest of his life was Coin. Meanwhile, others say that the name more generally reflected his short, muscular stature and overall aggressive demeanor. Teachers labeled him a slow learner, and he was held back twice. Gravano later attributed this to severe dyslexia, which he says explains a lot of rage from his early days onward. He was indeed taunted about his abilities in school at first, but the bullying stopped after Gravano fought back. For the next several decades, Sammy Gravano's life would continue to be fueled by violence. Sammy Gravano left school at 16. By that point, having spent so much of his time with a local gang called the Rampers. Then, after a 2-year stint in the Army due to being drafted into the Vietnam War, he returned to New York and soon officially joined up with the Mafia. He was first brought into the life by a Colombo associate that started him out with robbery jobs. But soon enough, he began moving up in the world and solidifying his position as a successful young racketeer. Sammy the Bull quickly earned a reputation as both a good earner and a man who was prepared to brutally murder anyone he was asked to. His first murder came in 1970 when he shot Colombo associate Joe Cochalucci, who bosses learned had been secretly plotting to kill another Colombo associate without permission. This new mafia killer continued to rise with the Colombos, but his run with the family came to an end when one superior became jealous and intimidated by Gravano's quick rise. Thus, he was released to join the Gambino family, which officially made him a member in 1976. Despite quickly impressing the Gambinos, Gravano's loyalty was put to the test 2 years later when a family decided to kill his brother-in-law, Nicholas, who had developed a serious drug problem and had reportedly insulted a superior's daughter in some fashion. The mafia has a complicated relationship with drugs, but members are generally expected to avoid becoming dependent on them. Becoming a drug addict meant the mafia could not trust Nicholas if ever brought up on drug charges. That meant he had to die. Gravano tried to protect his brother-in-law in a strange way. Rather than murder him, he gave him a savage beating. He hoped this would be enough for the bosses so he could spare his life, which didn't work, so Gravano had to kill his brother-in-law. After Gravano murdered him, the only thing that was left of his body that was found was his hand. But it wasn't all just bloodshed for Sammy the Bull. He made steady money in gambling and loan sharking, and even started a construction and plumbing business with his friend Edward. Thanks to his success, he continued to rise in the Gambino organization and become a millionaire. He built an estate for his family in Ocean City, New Jersey, investing in trotting horses, and became the operator of a plaza suit in Bensonhurst. In the early 1980s, it became such a popular establishment that patrons had to wait an hour just to get in. Sammy the Bull Gravano had more than solidified his place in the mob, but trouble was on the horizon. By the early 1980s, Sammy the Bull already had a strange relationship with the family's boss, Paul Castellano. And one particular incident at the Plaza Suit in 1982 only made things worse. Gravano had arranged to sell the club to Frank Fiella, a local drug dealer. But before the deal was even closed, he began knocking out the walls of Gravano's office to begin remodeling, acting as if he owned the place. Enraged, Gravano threatened Fiella, who flashed a submachine gun and threatened to kill Sammy the Bull right there. Gravano then retreated outside the club, and when Fiella exited the building, one of Sammy's associates shot him in the head. Gravano then personally urinated into Fiella's open mouth. Paul Castellano was upset regarding this unsanctioned killing, and Gravano was now at risk of ending up on the wrong end of a hit himself. Luckily, he managed to talk his way out of it, but he still sanctioned a meeting with his crew. Gravano wanted to make sure that if it ever became necessary, they would help him kill Castellano. As luck would have it, it became necessary just 3 years later. In 1985, another Gambino mobster who didn't like Castellano, John Gotti, arranged a meeting with Gravano. Gotti had never liked Castellano as the godfather of the Gambino family. And with the news that Castellano would soon acquire informant tapes showing Gotti's involvement in trafficking heroin, Gotti decided the time had come for a change in leadership. Gravano and Gotti, united by a common interest, arranged a hit on Castellano. As the boss entered Spark Steakhouse in Midtown Manhattan on the night of December 16th, 1985, several hitmen gunned him down as Gravano and Gotti watched from a nearby. Within a month, Gotti was the new head of the Gambino family. Gravano, meanwhile, was promoted to the position of concierge. For years, Gravano served as Gotti's chief muscle, brutally murdering anyone who crossed him. But Gotti's status as a boss made him more of a target than ever for the authorities. He was brought to trial several times on various charges, including assault and racketeering. Throughout the late 1980s, but with bribes and simple intimidation of jurors, he managed to escape conviction time and again, earning him the nickname of the Teflon Don. But few escape justice forever, and both Gotti and Gravano eventually found themselves headed to trials they couldn't bribe their way out of. Gotti and Gravano were both arrested on racketeering charges in December 1990 when the FBI raided the Ravenite Social Club in Little Italy. Once in custody, Gotti tried to pin many of the hits he'd ordered on Gravano, claiming that Sammy the Bull was a mad dog who killed for his own benefit. Sensing an opportunity, the FBI played the tapes of the conversation for Gravano. Feeling betrayed, he agreed to testify against Gotti in exchange for a reduced sentence. In March 1992, Gravano did just that. He testified against Gotti and others over the course of 9 days on the stand, revealing tales of racketeering and murder, 19 of which he said he was involved in himself, and 10 of which he said involved Gotti. With Gravano's testimony, the state was finally able to marshal enough evidence to convict the Teflon Don, along with nearly 40 other mobsters. In April 1992, Gotti was sentenced to life in prison. Gravano, thanks to his cooperation, received just a 5-year sentence, which only amounted to less than 1 year due to the time already served, and then entered the Witness Protection Program. As for Gotti, he died of cancer in prison in 2002. But even with Gotti dead, Sammy the Bull Gravano was by no means safe. He built a new life in Arizona as a small-time businessman named Jimmy Moran. Under this alias, he even started a swimming pool installation company. However, Gravano disliked this quiet new life, and just a year later, he left the program. He did not like the constraints that were imposed. One might think that a former gangster with an enormous target on his back might attempt to keep a low profile, but that wasn't the case at all. Gravano became very generous with giving interviews to the press once out of the program. He even appeared in a nationally televised interview with Diane Sawyer in 1997 and proved to be quite bold and boastful. And while he had indeed avoided the mob's murderous vengeance, he found it impossible to stay away from crime. In Arizona, he partnered with a local gang known as Devil Dogs after his son had befriended the gang's leader and soon started a major ecstasy organization that grossed $500,000 a week. However, February of 2000, Gravano and his family, wife Deborah, daughter Karen, and also his son, as well as 47 other members of the drug trafficking organization were indicted. Informants in his own drug ring, not to mention recorded conversations detailing drug profits with his wife and his daughter, eventually implicated him. In May 2001, Gravano pleaded guilty to leading a massive illegal drug operation in Arizona and was sentenced to 20 years in prison, but was released early in 2017. Thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment below.